What is going on, people? Mark from Double Clutch Auto Reviews here. Thank you so much again for tuning in for another review video. Today I have for you guys a darn near showroom condition 1999 Plymouth Prowler, the hot rod swing that Chrysler took in the 1990s. The Plymouth Prowler was essentially a concept car that became reality, and whether you love it or hate it, this car certainly gets your attention. The styling is definitely the biggest controversy behind this entire car. Something to appreciate though is that not many cars ever are drawn as a concept and then eventually look the same when they are eventually put into production. However, Chrysler made it happen. The concept car pretty much looks exactly like what we have in front of us today. Chrysler was doing really well in the late 1990s, and they felt like they wanted to take a swing and pay homage to the 1930s hot rod era, so they dumped $90 million into the R&D of the Prowler. Also, given the fact that the Prowler was a limited production car, only 11,702 total were ever built. These are very rare and they've held their value surprisingly well. Further increasing the Prowler's rarity, in red clear coat, there was only 1,573 of these made. And this one is also in exceptional condition with only 1,593 miles on it. Would have been funny if it had, 1,573 miles on it to match the number of these produced, but no, it's 1,593 miles. And the paint is in absolutely pristine condition. It doesn't even have the love marks, when you wash the car and it has those swirl marks on it, pretty much just like it rolled off the dealership lot. With this car being built in March of 1999, that is an average of around 66 miles per year. I literally drove over 50 miles just to get to Lance's house, let alone 66 miles every single year this car has been in existence. That's crazy. With all that being said, this Prowler is also for sale. It's located in southeastern Massachusetts. This thing is in absolute mint condition. I mean real mint condition, not Craigslist mint condition. And I doubt you'll find one this clean on the market. The owner, Lance, can also assist with arranging shipping in the continental US, so no worries if you live far away. If you're interested in inquiring about this Prowler, drop a comment below or email Lance directly if you want to make your pristine Prowler ownership dreams come true. A little history of the Plymouth Prowler. It was first introduced in 1997, was taken off of the production line in 1998, and then reintroduced in 1999 and built up until the 2002 model year. The MSRP for the Prowler back in 1997 was at $38,000, and by 2002 the MSRP got bumped up to around $45,000. They also changed the name of this car from the Plymouth Prowler to the Chrysler Prowler when the Plymouth brand was dropped in the model year of 2001. A very interesting option that you can get from the dealer for around $5,000 back then was a perfectly matching the rear end trailer to this car. The dealer installed the trailer hitch so you could tow that thing behind this car. However, it was not intended for you to tow a jet ski or a small boat, a camper, or anything else with this car. They actually affixed a label on the trailer hitch that said if you tow anything else besides the trailer that was designed for it, it could potentially void the warranty. Sure, it at least adds some cargo space, so now you can go get groceries in your Prowler and trailer combination. And yeah, is it fun to look at a Cars and Coffee? Sure. However, overall, I think the whole trailer setup for the Prowler is a little gimmicky. Let's be real. Who is intending on using their Prowler, even with the trailer setup, for running errands or especially going on a long road trip? This thing doesn't even have more than a 12-gallon fuel tank. So, in my opinion, the trailer is just a $5,000, oh, look at that gag / conversation starter at a Cars and Coffee. Under the hood of the Prowler, we have a 3.5-liter V6 with the 4-speed automatic auto stick transmission and rear-wheel drive. In 1997, the Prowler came out with a cast iron engine block, and that engine made 214 horsepower and 221 pound-feet of torque. As I said earlier, it was taken off the production line in 1998 and then reintroduced in 1999 with an aluminum engine block, and that made 253 horsepower and 255 pound-feet of torque. That increased the Prowler's 0 to 60 time from 7.2 seconds to 5.9 seconds, and it also increased the electronically limited top speed from 118 miles an hour to 126 miles an hour. Obviously, because of this car's arrow-like triangular design, Chrysler had to package the engine and all of its components in a pretty interesting way. For instance, the battery is right at the tip of the Prowler in front of the radiator. Pretty much nowhere else to put it, right? And it sits right in front of the Coney shocks that are clearly visible when you pop the hood, which actually looks really freaking cool. I think it's a great use of space, and you can flex your suspension when you pop the hood. To open the hood, it's a standard setup really. Just pull the tab on the inside by the driver's seat, and then you come up to the front and you pull this extended pull tab, as you can see, and that actually connects to the hood latch that sits maybe about a foot deep into the hood, but it's essentially the same as opening a hood in any other car. We also have the Prowler logo printed under the hood right there, and it's also on the 3.5 badge on top of the engine. It's also the same one on the steering wheel and the seats, and I think it's a sweet looking logo. It's like a stalking or prowling rather big cat, lion, puma, cougar, whatever you want to call it, but I think it looks pretty menacing. Kind of gives you goosebumps a little bit, you know, like a prowling cat sneaking up on its prey. And it's a unique badge to this car, which I think is extra cool. Lastly, to note under the hood, Chrysler put a sticker right here that says, "Paint okay." Thanks, Chrysler. I'm glad to know that my paint's okay on my Prowler. All jokes aside, I'm sure that's just part of the assembly line process when building this car. But next to that sticker is another sticker that we're pretty sure has the production number of this car, which is 3,237. If that's the case, that's also pretty cool to see. Moving on to the most fascinating and most polarizing part of this car, its styling, of course. I mean, just look at this thing. That was the whole point of building this car. No other modern car on the road looks like this at all. To start, we have the cow catcher style grille up front. That's a precise homage to the hot rod era. We do not have the mustache style front bumpers installed on this specific Prowler though. Lance does have them, but they are still wrapped in the plastic from the dealer, so he just decided to leave them off, which I'm kind of torn. I don't know which I like better. Let me know down in the comments below. Do you guys like the Prowler with the bumpers on or off? I think the Prowler looks cool with them off because there's nothing obstructing the exposed suspension in the front when you look at it dead on, so that's really cool. But I don't think it necessarily takes away from the look overall. Let me know what you guys think. I will say though, Chrysler did a great job of implementing those front bumpers to abide by the crash safety regulations of the time, but not take away from the styling of the Prowler, which was the whole point of this car to begin with. That is not easy to do, and I commend them for that. Speaking of the exposed suspension, I mean, just look how cool that is to see right there. It shows the upper and lower control arms, the tie rods, and even the braking components. It is so interesting and unique to see. Yet again, another precise hot rod homage. Another crazy fact is that we have 17-inch wheels in the front and 20-inch wheels in the back. That has to be the largest difference in a staggered wheel setup from the factory that I've ever heard of. Now moving on to the rear of this car, it is just so insanely wide and voluptuous looking. In my opinion, these taillights that are very thin and low, mounted right at the bottom of the fender, really accentuate the wide and low look of the rear end. Very cool touch. Yet again, another interesting fact of the Prowler is that the transmission is located in the rear of this car. Instead of most cars where the engine is connected to the transmission, which then connects to a drive shaft, a differential, axles, and then to the wheels, this car has the engine connected to a drive shaft that spins at engine speed that connects to the transmission, which is technically a transaxle like in a front-wheel drive car. But in this car, it's mounted in the rear to give it rear-wheel drive and help give it an almost 50-50 weight distribution between the two front axles. You can even see the transaxle cooler mounted right here in between the dual exhaust tips. Can't deny, that looks pretty cool. We also have the Plymouth Prowler logo embossed into the rear bumper right there. But if you get a model that's 2001 or 2002, it'll just say Prowler because then it became a Chrysler Prowler, of course, right? So they took away the Plymouth on the driver's side rear bumper. Being this is a convertible, I of course have to show you what the Prowler looks like with the top down. It's pretty much the only way you want to drive this car. It is a little bit of a cumbersome process, but I'm going to show you nonetheless. First, you climb in and you do two latches, one on each side of the top of the windshield, pull those back. Then you want to push this secret little yellow button behind the driver's seat right here. You push that, that pops the clamshell trunk. Then you come over behind the passenger seat and pull this latch. That releases the convertible top. Next, you have to get out of the car and pull the back end of the top forward. Then pull the clamshell up, which shows your cargo room back here, which is practically absolutely nothing. I thought the Lamborghini had bad cargo space. No, this Prowler takes the cake for sure. I don't even think I could put a backpack back here. That is despicable as far as cargo room goes. You would think with this absolute badunkadunka, this rear end that the Prowler has, it would have a ton of cargo room back here, right? No, not even close. But then essentially to finish lowering the top, you pull this back, it naturally folds into place for you. Pretty much the only reason for this clamshell trunk is the convertible top. And you gently close the clamshell back down. Here we go. And voila, you're riding down in top-down style. To put the top back up, you simply do this in reverse. Kind of. So obviously we come in and push our little secret button right here to open the clamshell back up. Then of course we pull our top forward and let it rest on the top of the windshield gently. But what's very important is the next step, we don't fully push down this part of the top, because if we do, the clamshell will close right on top of it. So first we have to make sure we close the clamshell first, then put this part of the top down, click it in, make sure it sets nicely in place. I'd probably come over here and make sure it's set on this side too. And we're good. Then of course finish up coming into the interior and clamping down the windshield locks on each side. That's 1 and 2, and now you're all set to go with the top up. So climbing inside the Prowler, something to definitely note, especially if you have a harder time getting around, are that these doors only open at a 45-degree angle. For instance, I'm gonna open the door for you now. That's as far as it goes, especially with the top down. That makes it really tricky to get inside this car. As you can see, even myself, I have to kind of shimmy way in here. It's definitely something to note if you have a harder time getting in and out of cars. This Prowler might not be for you. Also something to note, the amount of headroom that they give you with the top up is an absolute cardinal sin. There is no headroom in this car, and I'm not even that tall. I'm just over 5'11". Let's round up to 6 feet. Why not, right? But I mean, check this out. I can sit here and my head literally pokes into the roof if I sit all the way straight up. That is unreal. Essentially, that makes this car only drivable in top-down weather for anyone that's my height or taller. So now jumping into the Prowler with the top down, so we have more ease of access, of course, and some better visibility. I'd like to mention something that might be unpopular opinion, but I'm gonna throw it out there anyway. I believe that this car would have not only gotten away with, but it would have significantly benefited it, especially for ease of access, if it had an unusual style door setup. For instance, suicide style doors like on a Rolls Royce, or even scissor doors like on a Lamborghini Murcielago. This car is already wild looking as it is. That's the whole point of it, and I think it would have fit its character. And it would have also added to the practicality behind it, especially for the older crowd, which was the target demographic for this car anyway. As far as the rest of the interior layout goes, this is a parts bin special. But the reason that Chrysler did this is to save money building this car on the interior aspect, because they focused all of their money on the exterior styling. They had to do this to keep the cost down because they already spent $90 million on this production anyway, so they pinched their pennies where they had to, and this is where they did it. I will say, sitting inside this car, the only thing that sort of gives away a special experience is the dash, of course, that's paint matched to the outside, the Prowler logo, and the tachometer, but other than that, it's pretty much it. Most of it, unfortunately, just feels like you're sitting in a late 90s Jeep, Dodge Grand Caravan, or maybe even a Neon somewhere in here. Literally name any Jeep, Chrysler, or Dodge product from the late 90s to early 2000s. There's at least one, if not multiple parts from those vehicles in here. Chrysler also took this opportunity of building this one-off kind of car to practice building cars with a lot of aluminum. So 900 pounds of this car, including the frame, body, and other components, are all aluminum. That makes this car relatively light, weighing in at just over 2,800 pounds. And with a nearly 50-50 weight distribution and a power to weight ratio of 11.2 to 1, that's not bad for a spirited drive. I do have to point out some unfortunate drawbacks that you notice when sitting inside this interior. First off, the visibility is obviously terrible, even with the top down. Top up, it's absolutely abysmal. Practically feels like you're sitting inside a low-slung tank as far as your view goes. The sun visors also block pretty much half of your visibility out front, especially if you're on the taller side. The tachometer also has a very interesting placement, no pun intended, literally tacked on right behind the steering wheel right there. It's very very hot rod-esque. I like that feature though. Kind of seems a little weird though when they have this beautifully designed dash piece with all these other gauges in it, but the one gauge that they just slap right on there is attack. I also want to point out the auto stick gear lever. Of course, it's a PRND setup, but when you put it down into the auto stick mode or the manual shifting mode, it's not a typical up or down to upshift or downshift in other shiftable automatic cars. It's right to left. So it's right to upshift and left to downshift. Very weird. As far as weirdness goes, nothing I didn't expect out of the Prowler. Also, something very random, but I absolutely love that Chrysler did this, is they put an old school headlight switch where you pull it out and push it in to turn the headlights on and off. You only see that on older cars, and that is an awesome homage to put into the Prowler. As far as storage amenities go, we have one cup holder, at least we have that. We also only have a very small center console and a very small glove box to boot. There are also these small mesh pouches on each side of the drive shaft tunnel, so to speak, but other than that, that is it. That is all you get for storage space in the interior of the Prowler. Between the meh fuel economy, the absolutely non-existent storage space, and the kind of bad ergonomics of getting in and out and the visibility of this car, I would not want to take this car on a long trip. However, as far as short, leisurely backroad cruises go, I feel like the Prowler will be much more suited for that. So let's take it for a spin. And we're off. Alrighty, now out on the road in the Plymouth Prowler. My first impression is this is definitely an experience driving this car. There is nothing else on the road that looks like this, and you definitely stand out. But that's the point of this car, right? Before we really get into driving, let me get this out of the way and state the obvious. Yes, this car should have had a V8 and manual transmission option, without question. That's what everyone says.
Wow, I could have had a V8.
However, I'm just in regular drive right now. I'm gonna punch it. You know, it's nothing crazy, but for the target demographic, this car feels stout enough with this V6. They thought these people wanted a car that looked the part, really paid homage to that hot rod, rat rod 1930s era. This styling is off the hook as far as that's concerned. But they didn't want all the discomfort and the headaches that come with a modified, uncomfortable, loud, and super fast real hot rod. It's unfortunate though, because a V8 and a manual would have certainly livened up the Prowler beyond belief. It would have absolutely changed the entire character of this car. It's too bad that Dodge didn't have any V8s or manual transmissions lying around at the time, right? Practically most of this interior as a part's been special. They couldn't have parts been special, the V8 and a stick, whatever. I feel like if they did that, that would have curbed a lot of people's opinions, including my own, of more of like a meh, not really a fan of that car, to more of now like a maybe the styling really isn't my thing, but at least I can respect the driving platform and the uniqueness of this car. As far as packaging goes under the hood, sure, you might have to do some major modifications, but many people have swapped Hemi V8s into these cars. If Chrysler insisted on sticking with a V6 though, maybe they couldn't have thrown in the V6 motor from the Mitsubishi 3000 GT VR4, you know, maybe even a twin turbo option. Just saying. Chrysler certainly did a disservice to the Prowler by only giving it this drivetrain. However, at least that hasn't hurt the resale value of these Prowlers. All right, now we're on one of the awesome twisty back roads around here. Let's see how the Prowler does. So right away, it seems like the car handles well. It really does. It's pretty flat in the corner. It's just the steering is very vague and kind of wafty and wobbly. There's not much directness as far as where I'm pointing the steering wheel and where the car is going. But when you're actually in the corner, the car stays pretty flat. It is a little bit of a bumpy ride too, but I don't think it's anything that the normal person wouldn't be able to tolerate. All right, let's give it a full send from a stop. 3, 2, 1, go. That's not bad. That was actually pretty fun. Oh man, that 1-2 shift right there just skirted the tires a little bit. You know, I'm gonna be honest. I went into this review thinking that this car wasn't gonna be fun. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. Between the absolutely unique and bizarre looks of this car, the character it has, even with this drivetrain, which is a little bit lackluster, especially with this transmission, but it's still feels fun, and I feel like I'm getting looks everywhere I go. Like, literally, I drove a Lamborghini with Lance not too long ago, and I feel like we might even be getting more looks in this car than we did in the Lambo. It literally is a real-life Hot Wheels car. I certainly wish it drove more like what I would imagine a real-life Hot Wheels car to be. That V8 and stick shift would have completely changed the game. All right, now I'm gonna try it in auto stick mode. All right, here we go. All right, I'm convinced. I don't care that that was slow, that was still fun. Driving a slow car fast gets you every time, especially one with this much character. All right, that was just too much fun to not do that again. One more full send in auto stick. 3, 2, 1, go. All right, here we go, some good corners now. Oh yeah. It's a little bit sketchy because you don't really know where the front end is. You kind of have to guess where the wheels are. Lance said that, and I didn't really believe him until I drove the car, but because the nose tapers in and you can't really see the wheels while you're driving, you don't really know where the front end is, so it's a little unnerving if you're not used to that. Oh, that is good fun. Ooh, the burbles, baby. Literally just got another thumbs up from an older gentleman too. I mean, this thing is hilarious. Especially in this hot, bright lipstick red paint. I mean, this thing is just insanely conspicuous. I must openly admit that I went into this review actually not that big of a fan of the Prowler at all. But I'm leaving this review 100% a fan of the Prowler. Sure, it's not my favorite car. Would I ever own one? Probably not. I don't think it's the car for me. But this driving experience was absolutely something else. I don't think I'll ever get this experience driving a car like this unless I'm actually driving a real full-blown hot rod. Someone that is interested in a car like this will absolutely love it. I guarantee it. I had a blast driving this car. Despite the crappy transmission and no V8, I still had a ton of fun. And that's what this car is all about. And if you are interested in buying a Prowler, I cannot imagine you will find a cleaner example than this one. This thing has barely even seen the sunlight for 99% of its life. I've probably driven it more on this review than it's been driven in years. If you're interested in inquiring about this practically showroom condition Prowler with just over 1,600 miles on it, please drop a comment below or just email Lance directly with the link in the description. I have to thank Lance so much for letting me drive his Prowler today. This is obviously a very unique and quite interesting car. It's also surprisingly fun to drive. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself nonetheless, as you can probably tell. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please smash that like and also consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps me out to grow, and I really appreciate it. Take care, guys. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you on the next one. Have a great rest of your day. Peace.